In the history of the world, there's never been anything good about saying, "We need to talk," especially when accompanied by an abbreviated spouse's name. When Greg became Gregory, I realized the final chapter had begun. The private investigator I'd hired, he looked like a 1950s tracker escaped from a black and white detective movie, was bugging the hotel room my wife Carol shared with her boss, John Hoffman, the newly appointed executive vice president of sales at Home First Enterprises, a friendly alternative to big box stores. The pictures showed Mr. Hoffman getting friendly with my wife in at least 4 poses. From that point on, I spent every spare moment I had thinking about a plan of revenge. The most important thing was to behave normally until I was ready to unleash the full force of hellfire on the Letchers. The next week passed agonizingly slowly. Carol was very reticent to talk about her workday, which had previously been the main topic of our evening conversations. Each day, she became more and more withdrawn. But I didn't give up. "Did anything interesting happen today? Who did you go to lunch with? And my favorite, how's your new boss?" Carol would stutter out an uncertain answer and change the subject. Our evenings became very quiet. My private investigator had followed them enough to know that all their appointments took place during long Friday lunches. Hoffman would leave to call clients at 11:15, and Carol would leave 10 minutes later. Her excuse was that she had an appointment with a chiropractor. They were meeting at a business-class motel on the highway. We had enough evidence to hang this couple in divorce court. The paperwork was in order, the guns were loaded, and the war horses were raring to go. It was time to get my hands on them. I showed up at Home First Enterprises 5 minutes after Carol left. I walked in and asked Maria, the receptionist, to tell my wife that her hubby had arrived to take her to lunch. "I'm sorry, Mr. Eaton, but your wife left a few minutes ago to see her doctor." "Doctor?" "She has an appointment every Friday at 11:30. A couple days a week she skips lunch, and every Friday she takes a long lunch." "Thanks. I must have forgotten." The day before, I had bought a prepaid phone so I could call her at an unfamiliar number. It was the last week of the quarter, and Carol had to answer so she wouldn't miss a sale that might bring her a bonus. "Good afternoon. This is Carol Eaton speaking." Her voice sounded sweet, almost musical, as a salesperson should. "Is everything okay?" I could barely get the words out. "Oh, what are you talking about?" "I tried to surprise you by stopping by and taking you to lunch. The receptionist said you have a doctor's appointment every Friday. Are you okay?" I tried my best to look concerned. "I'm fine. Nothing special. Just a routine adjustment at the chiropractor." I could tell from her tone that she clenched her jaws. She wasn't happy, and I hoped it would carry over to the cheater's bedside. "That's odd because I ran into Dr. Wilczak a couple hours ago. He said he hadn't seen you in over a year and asked if you were cheating on him. When did you change chiropractors?" No answer. "Could you at least tell us who our new bone breaker is?" "I don't have time for this nonsense right now. We'll talk tonight when I get home." She hung up. On a typical Friday night, we ordered pizza, and that was the case tonight. I was paying off the delivery guy when Carol pulled into the garage in her black BMW. "About time," I announced. "I'm not feeling very well. I'm going to go lie down for a while." Carol muttered something and rushed up the stairs. The next sound was the slamming of the bathroom door. She was still awake 3 hours later when I joined her in bed. I nudged her one last time. "Why are you being so secretive about going to the doctor? Is there something you're not telling me?" I was relentless. "Carol, I'm tired of worrying about you. Please tell me what you're hiding." "Stop bothering me. I told you everything was fine. It's been a long day and I'm tired. We'll talk tomorrow." I had a hard time falling asleep because I could hear Carol crying into her pillow. I don't think she slept more than a few minutes at a time. I couldn't help but wonder how well Oedipus slept the night before he killed his father. On Saturday, Carol was a hell of a bitch from the moment she woke up. If we'd had a dog, she would have nipped it. The promised conversation with the doctor never happened. Whenever I tried to strike up a conversation, Carol dodged the subject. She managed to avoid me most of the day, but after lunch I finally caught up with her. I pretended nothing had happened and told her we had reservations at Antonix's, her favorite restaurant, for 6 in the evening. Maybe it will help you out of the state you're in, which seems to have stolen your smile. She replied with a blank stare and shrugged. At 5, I found Carol sitting on our bed looking at the wall. I got you a surprise. I held out a box of Neiman Marcus to her. She didn't open it. I felt awkward standing there looking at her. I hope you wear it today. When she came downstairs, I complimented her on how great she looked in her new dress. I was going to save this for a special occasion, but it looks like you need it now. I held out a gift-wrapped box to Carol. Carol tore open the paper, opened the box, and began to sob. These will look great with your new dress. And the string of pearls did. Dinner passed in silence. She spoke so softly that the waitress could hardly understand her order. Even 3 shots of vodka didn't loosen her tongue. Most of dinner went home in a doggy bag. When I pulled into the garage, she didn't wait for me to open the door for her. She was out of the seat before I even unbuckled my seatbelt. She stopped, turned her head, and said, "Thank you." Those were her first words in over 2 hours. I watched her walk up the stairs and lock herself in the master bathroom. I stood on my tiptoes and listened at the door. As I expected, she was talking to Hoffman, no doubt wanting to assure him that they would soon be together. I retreated to my den and awaited my fate. I pulled a small vial from my suit pocket and gulped down a handful of tranquilizers. I'd been taking those little pills like candy ever since I'd learned of my wife's infidelity. It was the only thing that kept me from going crazy. I watched Carol in the family room mixing another drink. I watched her empty her glass. She was still wearing the little black dress I had given her as a surprise at the beginning of the evening. I looked up and smiled. Damn, she looks good, I thought. Catching my gaze, she looked away. Even though I was aware of the upcoming conversation, it still gripped me like a heart attack. I pretended to be reading a book when she finally walked in. Carol stood in silence for a good 2 minutes before making small talk. Gregory, is this a good book? When I heard my full Christian name and saw that she was looking at her feet and not at me, I knew the end of my marriage was near. I rehearsed that moment for almost 2 weeks. I prayed that I wouldn't break the script. I put the bookmark between the pages, closed the book, and said, "Not as good as our marriage." So what's on the mind of the woman I love more and more every day? Will you finally tell me what is troubling your soul? I saw tears come to her eyes. What's wrong, my beloved? I feigned concern. I'm so worried about you. I took her hands in mine. She was already sobbing. Did the doctor give you any bad news? No! She replied much louder than could be heard in the room. Is that your mom? Is she okay? She shook her head negatively. Your dad, he's... My words were cut short. She shook her head again. I'm fine. No, it's something else. Oh. I stood up, pulled a suitable chair out from under the octagon-shaped chess table, and motioned for my wife to sit down. As soon as she sat down, I said, I'll be right back. Where are you going? She looked puzzled. I'll only be a couple minutes late. I need to get something upstairs. I pulled my attaché case and laptop out of the safe in my office. Carol was sitting at her desk with her hands folded in her lap when I returned. Her eyes were red and puffy. Without a word, I set the bag on the floor next to the chair and then flicked the pieces off the chessboard. They bounced off the wooden floor with a clatter. Carol watched with a confused expression on her face. Then I sat down across from her, opened the computer, and started typing. What are you doing? I put my finger to my lips and said, Shh, almost done. The quiet clicking of keys and her labored breathing were the only sounds in the room. After a couple minutes, I closed the laptop and announced, all done. So, my loving wife, what is weighing so heavily on your mind? I'm having a very hard time getting started. She began to cry even harder, and I held out a handkerchief to her. Finally, she managed to whisper, I don't want to hurt you. You were the perfect husband. I remained silent. You, Gregory, you know I love you. And I love you. I took her hands in mine and squeezed them. That's what makes this so hard. Telling me you love me? No, it's just, Gregory, I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore, so I said it. Carol buried her face in her palms and muttered, I don't know how it happened. It almost killed me, but I held my tongue. I watched as she hung her head shamefully down. Finally, Carol broke the silence. We've been together since freshman year of high school. It's always been Greg and Carol. I need some time to be me, and not our soulmate. So you don't love me anymore because our friends look at us and see what I thought was a happily married couple? No, you're confusing my words. You said you don't love me anymore. You're going to have to do a much better job of explaining what you're talking about. You can't understand. You're a successful businessman, and I'm suffocating in your shadow. You have a very good job. My job has nothing to do with it. Carol sounded like a cranky child. I waited at least a minute before asking, Did you find us a marriage counselor? That's not exactly what I had in mind. That leaves divorce, then. No, Greg, you're looking at this the wrong way. I want this for us to be a better couple. Then tell me, what exactly are you thinking? Carol's voice became very meek. I was thinking we could try a trial separation. A trial separation? My voice filled the room. Carol leaned back in her chair. Wait, let me explain. I clenched my fists. Please explain. Amy from work and her husband had a similar problem. I interrupted. What kind of problem? I told you. She lost her identity. Isn't that the idea of marriage? Two become one? Gregory. And how long will this little experiment of yours last? Amy said they started dating again after a couple months and are thinking about getting back together. Dating? While you're on vacation, are you going to date? Or have you already found someone? No. I told you I love you. I'm not looking for a replacement for you. I just need some time alone to be myself. That didn't answer my question. And where are you going to live after you move out? A long silence followed. I was hoping you'd get an apartment, somewhere nearby. A man is much safer alone than a woman. I laughed. That's never going to happen. Not now, not ever. Please, Gregory, don't be so unreasonable. I'm trying to make our marriage stronger. I growled. Stronger by reneging on your commitment. Stronger if you renege on your promises for better and for worse, in sickness and in health. Stop me if any of this sounds familiar to you. Oh, Gregory, you're looking at this the wrong way. We'll be together again, I promise. We already know what your promises are worth. Oh, Gregory, please don't say that. Her voice broke. I'll say it again. What exactly happened that makes you so unhappy with our marriage? It wasn't anything big, just a lot of little things, like going to the country club and the valet addressing me as Mrs. Eaton. You're upset because the country club you just joined has the appropriate manners for a minimum wage parking attendant. No, it's not just that. It's about 100 little things I can't remember. She paused, waiting for an answer, which I never got. Oh, Gregory, I can't tell you why it happened. It just did. For a long time, neither of us uttered a word. Finally, I interrupted the silence by undoing 2 clasps on my briefcase. I pulled out 2 folders of legal documents and placed them on the table. Then I opened my laptop and called up a picture. So that's why this happened? I turned the screen so that Carol could see a picture of her walking hand in hand with her lover into a business-class hotel. The next picture showed my unfaithful wife breaking our wedding vows. Every 30 seconds, a new photo appeared. Her face lost all color and she fainted. Her body collapsed in the chair. I waited a few minutes, then brought Carol a glass of ice water and helped her take a sip. She looked confused and frightened as each new picture appeared. She turned away. Her voice trembled. How long have you known? You mean How long have I known that the woman who swore before God and men to forsake all others betrayed me? Long enough to have prepared this. I laid a copy of the dissolution of marriage document in front of her. Carol was at a loss for words. You cheated. Our marriage is over. Sign this and I can move on with my life. She clutched at the document as if trying to strangle it. I could see her lips moving as she read the statement, which listed adultery as the reason. Attached were 24 color photographs labeled Evidence B. When Carol got to them, she screamed, "Oh God, no!" She began pounding the table with her fists while wailing something unintelligible. I took no pleasure in watching the only woman I had ever loved realize that she had separated Greg and Carol forever. As the final doom of our marriage encompassed her, she seemed to grow smaller and more colorless. I couldn't help but wonder if she was so foolish as to think I would ever accept her strange breakup. With each new picture, her wailing grew louder and louder. I watched it with disgust. It was a good thing I'd swallowed an almost prohibitive dose of tranquilizers to steel my soul for this moment, or I might have wavered in my resolve. Frankly, I'd rather die than endure this. Unfortunately, the prescription bottle was empty. Carol sank to the floor, her hands reaching for my right ankle. I was able to make out one word: please. I fought the urge to soul-crush her fingers under my heel. Instead, I pushed my chair back so she couldn't reach it. Although I knew how this story would end, I was also in a state of shock. So I closed my eyes and tried to pretend that this was a horrible nightmare that I had to find a way out of. But when I opened them, I was still in hell and the demon was still taunting me, pulling air into its heartless chest. The ringing of the front doorbell brought me back to reality. I turned around and muttered, "I'll be right back." 2 men entered the foyer carrying boxes. We talked for a while and then they headed for the crowded master bedroom closet. Hiring 2 movers to pack all my wife's clothes and personal possessions had cost a tidy sum, but it was worth every penny. Carol raised her head and managed to squeak out, "Who are they?" "If you refer to document A, our prenup states that if you are unfaithful, you lose everything, including this house. So to answer your question, they're from Reliable Moving and Storage. They pack all of your belongings. I rented a mini storage unit near where you work and paid the first and last month's rent. You will be out of here as early as today." Carol began to wail, "I can't believe this is happening." She curled up in a ball and sobbed. "What exactly did you expect when you slept with your boss?" "Oh, Greg, I thought... I didn't... Can I at least explain?" "It doesn't matter. You're a liar and a cheat. Now you should know a couple things. The lease on your BMW is in the company's name. I took the keys out of your purse because they're going to pick it up in the morning. You will also find that all of your credit cards have been canceled. Your cell phone will be disconnected first thing in the morning. In addition, your name is removed from all of our checking and savings accounts. And you will never have to worry about anyone at the country club treating you with respect again." My cell phone rang. I looked at the caller ID and answered it. "All set?" A moment later, I answered, "Thank you. I'll look forward to your report." "I thought you might be interested to know that your boyfriend's wife, who is 8 months pregnant, kicked him out when my private investigator gave her copies of these photos." I turned the monitor so she could see the next debauchery. "I told you he was a player when I first met him. You replied that I was stupid. Stupid. A word burned into my soul. 2 weeks later, he was sleeping with you. 2 weeks. You lasted 2 whole weeks before..." There was no need to finish the sentence. "I know his wife vowed to divorce him if he cheated again. Oh, he forgot to mention that you're the 3rd whore she's caught him with, so he's all yours. I guess you won't have to worry about the perils of single life. I wish you a happy life together. Until he cheats on you, too." Carol's cell phone rang. "Let me guess. Your lover is calling to tell you the good news. He's all yours." I grabbed the phone off the coffee table and smashed it on the floor. The ringing stopped. Carol's face contorted into a grotesque mask. I could see the terror in her eyes. "You've really thought this through, haven't you? You know what? I've done a lot of thinking. Tomorrow morning, my attorney will visit your employer. We've reviewed your handbook, and you should expect to be fired, and your boyfriend too, for moral damages. I wonder if they pay unemployment compensation to dumb whores. And that's just the beginning. The doorbell rang again. I'll be right back. Carol froze in place. Her mouth was carelessly open. She was making strange noises that were not words. Following me, an older man in a gray suit returned. This is Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson is the notary who will notarize your signature on the divorce papers. We'll have the movers witness it. She finally managed to ask the obvious question, what happens if I refuse to sign? Then I'll hit the send button and everyone you know, family, friends, co-workers, everyone at church, women at the club, everyone I can find, whoever knew you, will get an email overflowing with pictures documenting your adultery. There are even a couple short videos. Is there anything I can say that will make you change your mind? You've been sleeping with your boss for at least 6 weeks and tried to talk me into moving out of our house so you could sleep with him in our bed. I know you're not stupid enough to think I'd keep a lying whore as a wife. Carol looked like a hollow shell of a man. If you had confessed the truth to me tonight, I would have been willing to do anything to save our marriage. I gave you every chance, but instead all you did was lie. You betrayed me. You betrayed us. I hate you like I've never hated anyone before, and it scares me how much I want to hurt you. My hands shook with rage. But I'll tell you what I will do. Until 6 weeks ago, you were the epitome of everything a soulmate could be. You were my dream, my fantasy. You were the reason I lived, and you killed it all in me. In our state, divorce is no fault. I have a second set of papers that uses a vague ground for divorce. Irreconcilable differences. Sign now and get out of my house before I lose control of myself, and I promise I'll never tell anyone the truth. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. 5 minutes later, her signature was double witnessed and sealed, and the first half of my life was over. Carol looked dazed as she stood at the end of the driveway waiting for a cab to take her to the Business Suite Motel on the highway. I had reserved a regular room for her. I wondered if she would see the humor in that. Epilogue. 2 years had passed. I still haven't broken my promise and haven't told a soul until now.